In just a couple of hours from now, we will see the handshake that the world has its eyes on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi all set to visit China after 7 long years for the SCO, that is the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation summit. He will be arriving in China at about 4 p.m. today. During his visit, Prime Minister Modi will be holding bilateral talks. He'll speak separately with the Chinese Premier. He'll also have a conversation with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. This much-awaited meeting comes at a very critical junction. This follows very recent agreements between both the nations, notably with regards to the military disengagement along the LAC, that is the line of actual control. LAC has been a big flashpoint after the 2020 Galwan clashes. It's being said that there was a secret letter that was written by the Chinese president to President Draupadi Murmu in March. This letter helped in spurring the thaw that took place between Delhi and Beijing since 2020. Report also suggests a letter was then set. This letter was actually an attempt to test the waters on improving the bilateral ties. Message later was also shared with Prime Minister Modi, and then it set off a series of back-channel talks and helped in reviving the diplomatic engagement between both the Asian giants. The meeting that will take place between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping, it comes amid all the tariff tyranny that we are seeing coming in from the United States of America. China, in fact, strongly opposed the US decision to impose a 50% tariff on India. Beijing says it will stand very firmly with India to protect global trade rules, warning that silence only emboldens the bully. Joining me now, James Angelis, who's the President, International Security Industry Council from Japan. James, the first thing that I would like to understand at the moment is the fact that we are seeing a changing of dynamics taking place on the global platform. We are seeing United States of America on one side, President Donald Trump saying that he will be levying from 20% ranging all the way till almost 60% tariff on different nations. We are seeing the Asian nations now grouping together.
Well, I can say that we live in interesting times first, which is a Chinese proverb.
True.
They have never been uninteresting in my 7 decades, beginning with the Korean War. The dynamic, the political and the economic dynamics are extremely, by its definition, dynamic. They're changing every moment. So what I'm more focused on is the long-term relationship between allied countries, such as the democracies of India, Japan, Australia, and Europe, and the US, versus a more, shall we say, autocracies of China and Russia. It's really a divide there on attitude and culture and the ideals of freedoms, of expression, of religion, of assembly, basic rights that we have in our democracies that they don't have. I have seen many countries come and go, and I'm very secure with the thought that the democracies and the idea of these freedoms will survive.
James, do you also believe that what we will see at the moment is the Asian countries coming together? We are now seeing how Japan has made it very clear that there is a need to come together, and that's why we are seeing trade happening in various sectors. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also making sure that the bonhomie that Japan and India have shared over the past so many decades, it continues, and even more so, given the fact that there is a very hard stand that is being taken by the United States of America.
Well, I think you're right. Japan has historically, as all nations have when they formed the United Nations 70, 80 years ago. This is part of the dynamic I mentioned before. There's a continuous effort to bring people together and to find common ground. That's the reason that we are all of our career paths are dedicated to this. The current situation with this administration in Washington, with the Modi in India and with Xi Jinping in China is just another layer, another example, another typical dimension. So there's no shrillness on our part in our council, when we look at the world affairs, we don't really take too much notice because it's going to completely shift tomorrow.
James, please just stay on with me. We've got a breakdown of what will happen when Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be having a bilateral conversation with the Chinese Premier. What's on agenda? First and foremost, border stability, LAC troop disengagement. That's the foremost thing which will be discussed between India and China. The second thing will be reviving trade amid the global economic slowdown that we have witnessed over the past few months. India's trade deficit with China, that's also something very, very crucial for India, and India wants this to be discussed. Chinese investment in India, that's also something that China, in fact, has been speaking about over the past many months. Global South-wise, unilateral forums, that is something that both China and India at the moment are interested in. Cooperation on climate and green technologies, that's also something that will be the focus. Counter-terrorism, coordination with regards to neighbors and the neighboring regions, that's also something which will be discussed. So these are the top 7 priorities of China as well as India, and these are the topics that have been discussed upon. These are the topics that will be discussed when there will be a bilateral conversation between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. James, we are now seeing how different topics are being covered, but it seems like making sure that new markets open up, but you also protect your own country. That's been the focus of most of the nations since, we have seen US taking a very hard stand.
Well, I think all countries are increasingly becoming very self-making. Whoops, I'm getting Zoom bombed. I think this is a typical policy of most countries, is to make locally. And it follows India is the latest example of a major economy that's really focused on make in India, for example. This same in China, same in the United States, and all countries looking after their own interests. I think the main issue, and the only one that's going to make the difference, is war or peace. And that peace means in the LAC and in Ukraine and in the South China Sea, and wherever conflict is, the focus has to be, as Modi said, this is not a time of war. I think if he holds on to that,
right,
the whole world will follow.
James, do you also believe that in coming months we will see regrouping taking place? If we look at the entire world, we have seen how earlier the Cold War took place. There were certain countries aligning with the USSR, certain countries aligning with the United States of America. Do you believe regrouping is on the cards in months to come?
Yes, and that's always in play. I think the BRICS was kind of a major step in that direction quite a few years ago. The membership of the BRICS is increasing geometrically. That's good because there needs to be a balance of powers, which is what the world politic has always strived to do. So we're on that same path, and I think we will see a maturing of this situation where India is actually the kingmaker in that sense, and that where it decides is where the world will probably end up, in my opinion. Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. Thank you so much, James. Speaking with India today, somewhere in the middle, that's what most of the countries also at the moment are looking at. And that's what is the focus also of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.